What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Shoge Kami, and I'm back with this new chapter of One Piece. It is titled He Can't Even Die, and it's chapter 1154. Now, this chapter is great. There's a lot of setup and a lot of hype moments. I think that one of the peak parts of this chapter is the fact that it starts off with kind of a way of positioning where in time things have taken place. And the perfect person to do that would be the person who first showed us what Elbaf looked like, and that is Charlotte Linlin, aka Big Mom. So yes, at the beginning of the chapter, they showed us Big Mom, and they showed us her destroying that village in Elbaf. And we do know that both Gerd and Haruden were in attendance for that. And with both of those characters being so related to Big Mom in some way, and Big Mom having this thing with Pudding in the background, just the reveal at the end of this chapter that Blackbeard is Rox's son. You would think that him having Pudding in, bringing Pudding in and kidnapping her, all of this is related in some way. So I think that there has to be something Big Mom related going to be saved for Elbaf. There's just too many hints. We're still waiting on the information about Lola and Loki's relationship, how they had met, and if anything's going to do that. And I hope that we get something from this chat from about that in the next chapter. So as this continues, it's Loki's backstory, and Loki's backstory is indeed very sad. At first, it's hard to really believe in what Loki was talking about, but when he's talking about he wanted to destroy the world. But now he's starting to make me kind of understand what he's talking about. He wants to destroy Elbaf. What he means is, I think he wants to destroy the culture around Elbaf, because he believes that the culture is currently not healthy. And I don't know if he still believes in an overwhelming strength as he does in the, so far as we've seen it in this flashback, but I know that he believes in some form of strength might over this soft-hearted thing. But Luffy should help him see the light in some way. And another sad point about his backstory is he's just not getting the guidance that he needs. I feel like one thing that's being highlighted is that he, unlike Haruden, he didn't have somebody who took care of him. First, his mother and the attendants, and his mother treated him so poorly since the day he was born, just because of the way his eyes were. And after his mother passes, he gets his mother's brother as somebody who's taking care of him. By the time that the king gets there, Loki, as a baby, is already fed up, and the king just takes it in as he lost his mom. Of course, the baby's not gonna be happy, but the king has a distinct misunderstanding of what exactly is Loki's problem, and I think that is the saddest part. At least we know in the future that Loki is able to gain one friend who can see Loki for how kind and how potentially good Loki could be in I think his name is like Mazi, but we don't even know him yet or who he could be, so we are just waiting on that information. In this chapter, we see that before Rox arrives in Elbaf and after Herald returns to Elbaf, we see that the people of Elbaf are at an all-time low. Like, it's showing the calamity that people believe this curse has put on Elbaf, and that curse is Loki. So people are, stealing, fighting each other. There's no food. The weather conditions are crazy, and they'll do anything to survive. They'll believe in anything. And this all gets worse after Estrid has her funeral. And they believe that the cause of this curse was Loki, and they take it out even on Harden for being his estranged brother. I think the idea is that this whole relationship, like the having a bastard son and then having a cursed son, like the whole thing, people are just stringing onto these beliefs and doing whatever it takes to survive until the next day. It's almost like the famine and the poor things that happened in Wano. It's all being reflected here. But when Herald returns, he saves his son and he brings peace and prosperity to the people of Elbaf, bringing them food. But there's also like a slight promise that he says that if they need our help, we will come out and help them. So we don't really know what that is about, and like if that promise has been paid or if that's still an ongoing debt to be paid. Now, this chapter, we always knew about the Gali Law, which is the shipbuilding company that Frankie, Cuddy Flam, and Iceberg are a part of with their mentor Tom. But in this chapter, we've learned of a previous Galela, which was created by the giants, some ancient giants, and they were like a Warhammer shipbuilding company, which is pretty exciting to find out, like, just that this existed in the first place. This shipbuilding company goes all the way back to the Void Century, and they ended sometime during Ja Rule's life. So while Ja Rule is alive, he received one of their final notes saying that they had been captured. Now, we do know that like the note for the counter Pluton was passed down through Tom's like mentoring, and it got down to him, which ended up it being with Iceberg and Frankie, which Frankie then destroys it. So they protect it all this time for it to be destroyed. So you know that all this history comes from them, and that's only hinted through the name. Like, the name is the connection. So the question then becomes, who was Tom's mentor, and what was the relationship between Tom's mentor and, what was the relationship between Tom's mentor and the original Galela shipbuilding company, and how did they come to the conclusion to actually give over those counter blueprints? Because that is an interesting fact that really got me, like, my brain working, because, like, I just found that it was amazing. And another thing, which is heavy AOT influence, I don't know if this was before or after, but the giants being on ice, we saw this in Punk Hazard with Chopper and the kids in the cave, the giants on ice. We don't know, and since it's on Punk Hazard, we can just assume that this was a project that Vegapunk was working on. This could be related to the numbered giants. This could be like they could be infused with some type of information to control them and release them when ready. So who knows, And during this part of the chapter, it's also mentioned that because of the Warhammer Company and their relationship with the government, the things that Harold has been trying to get jumped off, Harold trying to make connections in the world, they could be getting denied for that reason, because of that background history. It could be not their fault, which then further implies, like, what was it that happened between the government and the Warhammer Company? If they built the counter Pluton, is that the reason why they don't like the giants? Is that the reason why they're being experimented on? Who knows, So we then go on to see parts of Haruden and Loki's growing up age, their formative years, and it's just shown that, much like Odin, Loki is just a menace, and Haruden is a brother who is the older brother, but he's smaller, and he's trying to protect the people he loves, just from Loki rampaging and going crazy while the king is out of town, because that's just what Loki did. And so we find out that basically both Haruden and Loki have what the other wants. Loki has like this title, this like legitimacy that keeps getting thrown in Harden's face for being like the bastard son. Meanwhile, Harden has, just the family, the love, the legitimate caring that Loki never received from the moment he was born. So both of them are both at loss. I'm sure that Loki never went without food, and things were definitely much more harder for Harden, but he had people who actually cared about him and people who he could rely on in the background. And I think that that's going to play a big part of what's coming up in the future for them. Now, in the last part of this chapter, Rox Dizebek is introduced, and under his name, it's introduced as the father of the future Emperor Blackbeard. And that's just crazy, because they just included that. Blackbeard is nowhere else in this chapter. But Rox Dizebek being the father of Blackbeard adds a lot more questions and a lot more intrigue to the relationship between Blackbeard and Ace, similar to that paralleling the relationship between Roger and Rox himself, like exactly how that fight happened. The relationship between Whitebeard and Rox. If Whitebeard knew that Blackbeard was Rox's son, why would Whitebeard take him in? Like, if we do know that Whitebeard, wanted to believe that, a child is not their father, but obviously Blackbeard never took that lesson in. Or even so, if Whitebeard believed that, but I do believe Whitebeard still favored some sons over the others, aka Ace, who is obviously Whitebeard's favorite. You know, he sent his other sons to go get Ace back. Now, included with Whitebeard, we had Buckingham Stussy. Sorry, included with Rox, we had Buckingham Stussy, Golden Lion Shiki, and Whitebeard, all alongside Rox. And Rox's introduction, they say that he killed an admiral and then he fled. That gave him a special bounty. I wonder how high his bounty will be. We've never heard of this feat ever. No one had ever killed an admiral. So I wonder if Rox could have a bounty higher than Roger's bounty. So this is just all interesting. Now at the end of this chapter, just the last few questions I would love to get cleared up by the end of this arc is like, what's going to happen with Loki's weapon? Where did he get it from? Did he make it? Does he know how to make weapons? I'm still in like the mind that the Straw Hats need like a true weapons creator, like somebody who could make a weapon, somebody who has a talent for that kind of thing. Is that weapon related to the Gale-La, who are like the Warhammer company? And since Harden and Gerd both knew Big Mom, is that kind of a hint that Big Mom is coming in this arc at some point, or there's something related to Big Mom that we still need to find out? I still want to think about the relationship between Blackbeard and Big Mom and Luffy and Big Mom. Those things are basically unresolved still, and now that we have this whole Rox thing, I feel like there is a resolution that could be coming for them. And I want to know how Loki received a special bounty. I don't know if that's related to Shanks. I don't know if that's related to at all to the God Valley incident. But whatever it is, I feel like that is an important piece of information that we need to know. And that's it. I thought this was a great chapter, and I will be looking forward to making the next one. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know you're live down in the comments below. Thank you very much. Soge Kami, out.